Do you believe this? Just to kick it off, the judge admonishing the media about reporting too many details about these jurors. They're not reporting names. They're reporting things like general age, what level of college education, what newspapers or news feeds they follow, and employers. That's what they're reporting. And family status. Are they married? Do they have kids? This is all fair game. And now the judge is telling the media they're not allowed to report employers anymore. And you know what? This is all a level of anonymity that your average juror doesn't get anyway. These are public proceedings. This judge, I think, has gone too far. And he's basically trying to shame the media, saying, come on, guys. He's like, come on, you really need to use your discretion about what you're reporting. You're releasing too much information. This is a free and open court proceeding that the media is allowed to report what they want on. And the judge did not limit place of employment. So now he's regretting that. That's number one. And then I'll get to the second juror and why he may be going. But let me start with you, Jim, because we haven't seen you in a long time. Hello, welcome. Good to see you. What do you make of it?
Good to see you, Megyn. Well, all of these things are being discussed out loud in court, correct?
Yes.
Like when the jurors are being questioned. So this is all part of the official transcript, which is all, everything in a court transcript is public, open to the public. Occasionally, you'll find a judge who will, bar something from public, discourse because of, national security purposes, or, if there was some sort of reason where if you were mentioning someone, Salman Rushdie's home address would be the sort of thing I could understand a judge saying,
yes,
no, you should not be putting that out into the public domain. But all of this, if you're talking about it in court, it's very odd to see a judge say, oh, we can talk about this here in a room full of reporters. And I imagine space is limited, but the public, public can sit in on trials almost all the time. But it can't be reported in a newspaper the next day. It can't be mentioned on television the next day, or radio, or a podcast, or something like that. That is a very fine distinction to make, and a very bizarre distinction to make. And I suppose if he'd said, you know what, if you say to someone works for IBM, well, that really doesn't narrow it down very much.
Exactly. This Apple. Nurse worked at Memorial Sloan Kettering. You know how many nurses are at Memorial Sloan Kettering? It's like, okay, I'm sure some people had suspicions, but it doesn't mean it's this particular gal. Now,
if it's Bobby Joe's suspender shop and they only have 3 employees, well, then maybe it's a different story. Maybe that is a little bit narrow it down. But my guess is most jurors in Manhattan probably work for employers that have a decent amount, and just knowing their marital status, whether they have kids, general age and employer, isn't going to be enough to identify them. And I don't quite get what this judge is worried about.
So now, Charles, we may be losing yet another juror, and the jury hasn't even officially been composed, seated, or sworn in yet. We need 12. Going to bed last night, we had 7. Now it appears we may have 5. Technically, we have 6 still, but let me tell you about juror number 4. On this show, we discussed him yesterday. We weren't sure based on the reporting whether he was a Puerto Rican man or whether he was a different ethnicity and a different juror altogether. But it is, in fact, a Puerto Rican grandfather who said, and we talked about this on the show yesterday, he found Trump mysterious and fascinating, which are themselves mysterious and fascinating terms. What does he mean? And now he may get dismissed because it appears he may have lied in his jury questionnaire about past arrests. That would be a problem. Apparently the prosecution is raising this in court, and the Trump defense team is sort of sitting nearby kind of laughing about it. I mean, it's, but that's a thing. He was supposed to be there this morning, juror number 4, for questioning, but has not yet shown up. Also a problem. But the thing that's interesting about all of these jurors is they're only in there because they raised their hand and said they could be fair, right? Because again, today, there was another tranche of, I think, 96 jurors or so, or maybe, I can't remember the number. But once again, they had to raise their hand if they could not be fair, or if they could be fair, whatever. Half of them left because they openly admitted they couldn't be fair to Trump. And the other half lied and said that they could. And those will be Trump's ultimate jurors. It's a joke, but it is going to be a challenge.
I think that there is a special place in hell for people who can't be fair in criminal trials. You said this juror who is on the way out, was an oncology nurse. She helps people who are in the worst moments of their lives, and she can't be fair. This is the backbone of our republic. It's as important as voting, as free speech. If you can't do that, you're a bad citizen. I really find this appalling. I have long wanted to be on a jury, Megyn. I'm a weird person in that I don't want to get out of it. I want to get in. And I've always thought that they'd never let me because they would say, what do you do? And I would say, I write for National Review. And they would say, do you have strong views about this, that, and the other? And I would say, well, of course I do. And then they would say goodbye. But I really think it's a skill, it's a civic habit that we ought to have in abundance. And if you look back to the early republic, with the trial of the British soldiers in Boston, where John Adams famously represented them. That's a beautiful moment. I struggle to watch that in the HBO series without tearing up because it was so against the interests of many of the people who were involved in that trial. And so it is here. I don't care if these people love Donald Trump or hate Donald Trump. That's not the question in front of them. And so to see this happening is depressing. There is a very big difference between someone being dismissed because he's lied to the court. That's bad. Because he doesn't show up at the court. That's bad. Because he had an arrest record or what you will that he didn't disclose. That's bad. And someone deciding, no, I am so incapable of controlling my emotions and my mind that I cannot give this person a fair trial. That is a problem in and of itself in our system that we ought to want to rectify.
It's really true. And now you have, yesterday we talked about the absurd media coverage so far of jury selection and how, with nothing else much to write about, these several reporters have taken to what sound like R-rated recitations of Trump's body movements while he sits there and watches the questioning. I mean, truly bizarre stuff. And today we get this from Maggie Haberman of The Times. She's positing that Trump is getting special treatment. We've heard this now more and more from the left and reporters on the left. He's getting special treatment here because Trump, having been gagged and thanks to a ruling that stops him from talking about the witnesses like Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels who are out there on a daily basis criticizing him, he is subject to a motion now by the prosecution that he violated the gag order by saying some things about Michael Cohen, that he's an ex-con, that he's a convicted felon, and that he's a liar. And now the prosecution wants him gagged, again, fined $3,000, and potentially they asked the judge to remind Mr. Trump that he would be thrown in jail if he did this again for up to 30 days. All right? the former president. So she reports as follows. The judge will not rule on whether Trump violated the gag order until after a specific hearing about it on Tuesday of next week. Until then, Trump can presumably talk and post as usual. Maggie Haberman, the press is barred from covering aspects of the trial related to the jury for understandable security reasons. At the same time, the judge is taking another 5 days to hold a hearing, meaning he won't hold one for another 5 days, on whether Trump has violated the gag order that was placed on him with repeated social media posts about a key witness and jurors. This is one of several ways in which, despite Trump's complaints that he's being treated unfairly, the judge is bending over backward to be fair to him in this trial. I've got my doubts about that suggestion, and I don't think the Trump is bending over backwards in any way, shape, or form. Jim, yesterday we saw him admonish Trump and accuse him of jury tampering or intimidation because he heard Trump grumbling to his lawyer, and the judge openly admitted he had no idea what Trump was even saying.
I guess when Trump grumbles to his lawyer, he needs to sound more positive and cheery. He needs to be happy, optimistic grumbling. You will have to look far and wide before you will, more like Tim Allen doing the grunts from Home Improvement or something. So you'll have to look far and wide before you'll find a correspondent who has a more symbiotic relationship with Donald Trump than Maggie Haberman. I don't think it's too much of an exaggeration to say that Maggie Haberman's career in the last decade or so has been built upon this access to Trump. The fact that Trump will periodically call her up and just vent even though she has written many critical things, but always they end up, for some reason, he ends up talking to her again. And that, those who have been on the Trump beat, well, the story now is the Trump trial. I myself do not find this fascinating. I myself do not find this, endless edge of your seat drama a worthy successor to, I can now say, the late O.J. Simpson. Just fast forward to the verdict. I don't care about every particular twist and turn. I think Alvin Bragg has a particularly weak case, but who knows? It's Manhattan. Maybe it's not hard to find 12 jurors who will say, Trump's probably an SOB. I'll vote against him anyway. As Charlie alluded to, that's exactly what you're not supposed to do. And you're supposed to say, well, I voted against Trump twice, and I think Trump is a terrible president, a terrible guy. But I do not believe that the prosecutor has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that these crimes were committed. And therefore, I will vote not guilty. Like, that's the way juries are supposed to work. I don't know if juries are supposed to work. Thinking of the O.J. trial, I'm reminded of that old, Dennis Miller joke that if you ever go on trial, your fate is in the hands of 12 people who couldn't get out of jury duty. And of course, they won't take Charlie Cooke because he knows too much about everything to be put on that jury. So,
and they'll be thrown by his British accent. They're going to know he's too smart for them. As we approach another critical election, many Americans are concerned. Recent studies reveal that an astonishing 56% of citizens report feelings of anxiety or dread about the upcoming election. But I want to tell you about AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. AMAC is more than just a senior organization. During these challenging times, they fight for common sense and for the U.S. to return to traditional American values. Visit amac.us/Megyn today to get an exclusive election year special, a 4-year AMAC membership for just $30. As an AMAC member, you not only enjoy money-saving benefits, but also the AMAC magazine, free Social Security and Medicare advice, a trusted voice in Washington, and a community of like-minded patriots. Take advantage of this election year special, 4 years for $30, and be part of the solution. Join now at amac.us/Megyn. That's amac.us/MEGYN. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.